I don't believe for one second that South Africans want a gunless South Africa. In a country where the crime rate is through the roof and policing is in disarray, falling apart, basically non-existent, our last line of defense are firearms, legally owned, by the way, not illegally. And the government is seeking to take away your right to gun ownership for self-defense. Now, for some of you, this might sound like an episode that I have done before, but please stick around because there's some important information in this episode. Let's get into it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Newsflash. I'm your host, Joe Emilio. Thanks for tuning in. So Gideon Uber, a security expert, has sounded the alarm because the government was trying to push through amendments to the Gun Act quietly. Y'all will remember an episode I did recently. Now, for those of you who may not know about it, great. Stick around. And even if you've known about it, stick around. Because Gideon released a video on X and he had some very important things to say. Have a listen.
Hello everybody, my little X post calling for the abolition of gun control in South Africa has gotten some good traction and some very nice and meaningful engagement. So just to clarify a few things. Gun control in South Africa hasn't worked, it is failing miserably and it will continue to fail. The South African government commissioned research from the Wits School of Governance in 2015 to look at 15 years worth of data from the year 2000 until 2014 to determine whether or not gun control legislation had any effect on public safety, national security, and crime and violence in this country. The result was a resounding no. The researchers could find no meaningful evidence that the Firearms Control Act of 2000 had any meaningful impact whatsoever on crime and violence trends. It did, however, find that the level and strength of policing did have a meaningful impact. So, surprise, surprise, the stronger your policing, the more effective your policing is, the less crime and violence you have in the society. I hope that comes to us as a surprise to absolutely nobody. And then it doesn't matter what the gun control legislation is. In fact, it cautioned the government with the words that the South African state needs to shift its misplaced focus and obsession with gun control legislation as a solution to crime and focus rather on the strength and level of policing. Now, if you've been watching the Madlanga Commission and have been paying attention to what's been going on the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police, you will notice that the South African Police Service is extremely broken to the point of dysfunction, infiltrated by criminals, and just infested with corruption. And fixing that institution may not even be possible, to be honest. So we are left to our own devices for the most part. And foolish legislation that tries to regulate behavior through the regulation of objects, there are many better solutions to creating a high trust society, a flourishing society where people and property is safe and secure, that doesn't involve this nonsense of gun control legislation that achieves nothing except make it expensive, difficult, in some cases impossible for good people to gain access to the guns they need, have a legitimate need for, to protect their lives, their families, their communities, and their country. All that the FCA 2000 is achieving at the moment is to increasingly, especially with the continued threat of amendments to it to make it harder for us to own guns legally, is to leave good people, honest citizens, disarmed and vulnerable against an army of criminals that have no shortage of access to guns, that are in many cases politically connected and politically protected, and where the state has repeatedly failed or proved unwilling to intervene and get rid of them. Fewer, in fact, depending upon which statistics you use, but fewer than 50% of all guns in South Africa are licensed. Only the people who willfully choose to submit themselves to the law and the FCA bother licensing their guns. The other 50% plus, totally in unlawful hands, and the Firearms Control Act and the authorities have no control over them. So I hate to break it to those who foam at the mouth whenever the term Second Amendment is mentioned. We already have a Second Amendment in this country. The problem is it is only available to criminals right now. And I propose that we extend that right and those privileges to the good, hardworking, productive, honest, and ethical citizens of this nation as well. And that we be done with this foolish experiment, failed experiment of gun control legislation, and throw it in the bin. abolish the FCA now.
And when I watched this video, I knew I had to make a follow-up video for you guys. Like, I mean, I think X is a great platform, but it only reaches so many. And so I wanted to bring this message to the fore on YouTube, on my channel, and implore you, please have your voice heard and go and comment on that Free SA campaign. It is super important. We cannot allow this communist government to be able to take away our right to self-defense by owning a firearm. And Gideon is 100% correct. This isn't about gun control or making South Africa safer, because the criminals will end up having the monopoly on guns. Do you really think the government's going to crack down on criminals when we have a broken police system?
Not a chance.
And it really grates me because, you know, the government likes to come out, all these politicians, as a matter of fact, like to come out and say, oh, we want to fight against GBV. We want to empower women. You know what empowers women? Giving them a gun so that they can defend themselves against predators, against horrible people. We sure as hell know the police aren't doing it. Hell, sometimes the police ignore the women, and at the risk of sounding like a lefty, victim blame. My point is, what we should be doing is focusing our efforts in fixing the police system, because if that system is working and effective, then we won't have as many criminals who own guns. But until that is fixed, the government better keep their hands off our guns.
That's what I'm talking about.
Besides, I'd like to see them try and take these guns away from people. I mean, I have no idea how this is going to be implemented. The government can barely organize a piss up in a brewery, let alone trying to enforce taking away guns, and try and take a gun away from a farmer or a father or a woman who owns a gun strictly to protect herself. The South African government and lefties, radical lefties in this country, want you to believe that they are doing this for your protection. But let me ask you something. When has the ANC or the South African government successfully protected its citizens? I'll leave you with that, and you can give me your answer in the comment section below. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to help me uncover the truth behind land grabs in South Africa, please head on over to the Back a Buddy campaign. If 4,000 people donated 50 Rand, we would hit our goal, and productions on Stolen Ground 2 and 3 can begin. You can find out more details on stolenground.co.za, and if you prefer to donate via EFT, those details are also in the description and pinned comment. Depending on which platform you're watching this episode on, don't forget to leave a like, follow, or a subscribe. I've got more content coming your way. And with all that being said, thanks for watching. Your Newsflash is in.